Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Digital Marketing in a Changed World. I'm Phil Robinson, as you can see from that rather gigantic photo of myself there, Creative Director at Procter & Stevenson. We're a Bristol-based marketing agency specialising in creative, strategy and technology, typically but certainly not exclusively for B2B markets. So first of all, a big thank you for joining. I know how precious your time is and how little patience any of us has for any more webinars, online meetings, Teams calls, anything like that. And that's why I'm going to keep the introduction short and hopefully the value high as I take you through the session today. So what's it all about? What am I going to take you through over the next 20 or 30 minutes? Well, first of all, what this isn't. It isn't another guide to running webinars or a rundown of Zoom meetings, WebEx conferences or Teams best practice. And it certainly isn't a silver bullet solution to the marketing challenges of the horrible new normal. We've all had quite enough of that. What it is instead is an opportunity to look at familiar marketing challenges in different ways. It should give you some inside track on easy to implement digital approaches and technologies that are really proving their worth for us in today's marketing landscape. Hopefully a practical guide to ways in which you can successfully negotiate hybrid working, where people are working from home, in the office, face-to-face and remotely. And hopefully it should form a springboard for your own digital inspiration and innovation now that we're moving into maybe another stage of lockdown, a slightly different stage. So basically what I'm going to cover is some creative tactics and technologies that we've been using to good success recently, and also cover a bit of insight and strategy that can help inform your marketing planning. So without wasting any further time, let's start by looking at where we've all been. Let's rewind 6 or 7 months and look at this sort of progress, path of progress that we've followed. So 6 months ago, 7 months ago, lockdown happens, and lockdown is quickly replaced by meltdown for a lot of people. There's widespread bewilderment. Everyone's asking what's happening, what does this mean? And this bewilderment quickly becomes fear. Everything seems to be in jeopardy. How do we keep doing business? Are we all going to disappear without trace? All of those questions that were running around our minds. And that translates itself into panic as everyone scrabbles around trying to do the same old marketing things in the same old marketing ways, but quickly realizing that wouldn't work. Alongside all of this though, here at P&S, I've been working with my colleagues in creative, strategy and technology to try and get ahead of the game. And while it was a bewildering time, for us, it was an incredibly exciting time. We were working in close collaboration with clients to really help them understand the new challenges and understand what it was going to take to succeed. So there were lots of late nights, lots of discussion, and by discussion I probably actually mean a lot of full-on argument, but also a huge amount of action and initiative. And that helped us to help our clients to regroup at that point, to start seeing positives in the chaos. Those positives then led on to discovery as we started identifying new opportunities, and exploration as we began exploring new marketing approaches, exploring new tech and exploring some pretty exciting conclusions and things we realized we could achieve despite the changed world we were working in. And that then led on to action, which has to be a hallmark of your marketing activity right now. It's all about action and delivery. So gone are the days of marketing campaigns that are 6 months in the planning or conception. You need to act and deliver fast. That's a critical mindset you need to have. And from all of that, first of all, bewilderment and panic and fear, through to action and delivery, we've identified 2 key characteristics that marketers like yourselves need to adopt if you're going to be successful. And those are, for us, agility and ingenuity. Agility, if we've learned one thing over the past 6 months, it's the speed with which the world can change. So marketing needs to be conceived and delivered, and then measured and refined, of course, with the same speed. It also requires ingenuity. We all need to be applying creative and lateral thinking to the way we approach our marketing. And for me, that's where things get really exciting right now. I have to say, despite all the turmoil and despite all the challenges and despite all the difficulty, these past 6 or 7 months have probably been the most exciting time in my entire marketing career. So it's a real time for positivity as well, in my opinion. So let's start with, as I mentioned, the creative. Let's move on to the types of creative and the media available to us to help us face the challenges that are ahead of us right now. And starting with what became a bit of an obsession at the start of lockdown for us, virtual events, or virtual insanity for some. In the world of marketing, of course, as you'll know, One-to-one meetings, trade shows, events, exhibitions, all of those things are incredibly important. So as face-to-face interaction became impossible, there was this desperate need to replace physical interaction with virtual events. And that meant people looking at those sort of second life events, those things where you had avatars and you were placed within virtual worlds and you walked around and you touched things, you looked at things, and it was all a bit sort of clunky at that point. There are some that have been done pretty well, but for us, it wasn't really a suitable solution to the challenge. We believe that replication of physical events in that second life avatar style fashion doesn't really lead to great experience for customers, clients, or prospects. UX tends to go out of the window in favour of gimmicks, and the investment can't really generate the returns you're looking for. And it certainly doesn't meet that need for agility, that key characteristic, because these are big, heavy-duty projects. They're a long time in the planning, they're a long time in the development, so they're not agile. If you are going to go down the road of allowing customers and prospects to pay you a visit virtually or sort of get hands-on with you, all hope isn't lost, though. There are some pretty good solutions out there. We've done quite a bit of research into this ourselves, into virtual experiences, and things like Matterport that you can see here, for example, is a really good way of doing it. The beauty of Matterport is that you can have your premises, your showroom, your event, your whatever, your meeting, your offices. It can be captured using just a smartphone and then uploaded easily onto your website. So it then becomes a very interactive experience that's not that big, heavy-duty, heavy-lifting, clunky sort of avatar-style world. We're also looking at it, and that it's a great way to breathe life into case studies, for example. You may be in an industry where your services are more intangible, so you don't have a showroom, for example. But what we can use Matterport for is showing those services in situ and show their application more effectively. In terms of the sort of the virtual event side of things, we believe it's far better to embrace the idea, however, that physical events aren't necessarily possible, so don't try and just do them exactly the same in the virtual world. Instead, we feel there's a need to create experiences designed on the web for the web. So you have the idea of truly interactive digital events rising to the fore, with video as their basis, accompanied by sort of flexible agendas, things that you can on-demand content, breakout rooms, sponsor areas, speaker areas, watch on demand things, all those sorts of things. And this event that was hosted earlier this year by IBM, for example, is a great example of that. They really embraced the idea that they were creating something different and something that was conceived on the web for the web. The real beauty of this kind of thing is that you immediately, beyond the event itself, you immediately have a library of content that you can use as a platform for 3, for 6, for 12 months of ongoing marketing activity as well, of course. You're immediately generating your own content. And we've actually taken this idea one step further. Rather than see the event as just a marketing campaign in and of itself, we've developed a system that provides a platform on which the event can happen, but then it becomes part of an entire marketing ecosystem. And you can see it here, hopefully. What you see here is a system we've developed using a platform called Webflow, which is a content management system. We use Webflow as the platform on which everything else sits, and we do lots of integrations from there. So if you start at the left, you have Webflow sitting as a platform. You can then have social sharing of your event information, of course, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can have these adaptable agendas. People can actually make the day work on their own terms. You can link in customer case studies that has relevant content to the subject matter of the event. You can share speaker profiles, which becomes good promotional activity. There's a sponsor section if you're doing it with any partners, for example, and then a library of resources, any further marketing collateral that you might want to share that's relevant to the event. And then if you move into that second circle, we integrate with other things like, for example, here, Eloqua as a marketing automation system. So we can use the event as a way of getting opt-ins to further ongoing newsletters throughout the year. So you're building your database there. You can have the schedule builder, as I said, but then you can actually get the sign up for the event there through Eloqua. You've got complete control then of the communications system that you've got. You've got polling, of course, that informs, that's marketing research on the fly. You can calendarize the event. And then, of course, you can stretch out. You can use the event as a way of producing YouTube advertising, for example. You can have the interviews and sessions from your event as promotional content in the future via YouTube. And then the third section third circle, that's where we integrate with the actual event platforms themselves. We haven't tried to rebuild any of these big event platforms, you know, WebEx, GoToWebinar, all of these things. Hopin is a good one that we've just come across recently. We've not tried to replicate those, they work well. What we're trying to do is bring them into your marketing ecosystem so that you can have a much more close control over the way you promote yourself, the control over the consistency of your brand, and also integrate your full system so it becomes much more joined up and it runs over months rather than as a one-off event. So there are ways around the challenge of events and virtual experiences. But what about the sort of more practical aspects of marketing in a changed world? What about, for example, the need to turn offline media into online experiences, online collateral? Again, we've been working hard to arrive at solutions that keep costs to a minimum, but make sure effectiveness and agility are better than ever. So if we start with your printed collateral, for example, think about your annual reports, for example. How do they translate themselves into the digital environment? What about your brochures, your case studies, any customer publications, any direct mail for that matter? All of the things that have been traditionally part of the marketing mix. Of course, you could do this by PDF. PDF versions of printed documents are nothing new. They've been around for an awfully long time. But PDFs don't make for great UX. They aren't responsive, they're pretty clunky, and really crucially, they aren't easily updated. They don't meet that need for agility again. They're just not really fit for purpose where you're trying to be agile and you're trying to be flexible. So what's the solution? Well, again, we put Webflow to work for us to arrive at something much better than a PDF. As you'll see here, using Webflow, we can translate printed material into responsive, on-brand, immersive, animated digital documents. It's full of video, it's full of nice animation, it's full of great design, it's really consistent with our brand. It's easily indexable there on the left, as you'll see. Because these documents are then built on a CMS, for example, your annual report built on a CMS, your content, including the copy, the imagery or video, can be updated in an instant, on the fly. As soon as you want to change it, it can be changed. And because they're hosted online, your content is then indexed by Google for search. Great for your SEO and findability, it gives all of that a boost. Also, because they're based on templates we've created, or you can create, you can handle numerous documents at once. There's design at scale built into this. So you can stretch this out across your entire marketing estate without compromising on quality or consistency. Equally, because they're online, you can include contact requests or meeting booking forms or marketing opt-ins directly to your CMS systems. The document links straight to your CRM, sorry. So data capture is easier than ever. Trackability is perfect. Measurability is great. You can see what people are clicking on, what people are interested in. So that's it's proven really, really valuable to a lot of our clients right now, that idea of being able to digitize documentation and make that link again with their wider marketing systems. The next idea, the next sort of tactic is something that we've been looking at for quite a while now. It's the use of AR, VR, that sort of thing. Now, for a long time, augmented reality was something that was really for the top end of marketing. It was expensive, it took a long time. It required apps to be downloaded onto phones, all of those things that were barriers to its use. But we've been looking at ways of getting around those solutions. So we're using AR to replicate things like, sure, if you've got a product, for example, that has always benefited from hands-on contact with your prospects and customers, we've now developed ways to put those products into the hands of your customer without the need for an app, without the need for huge expense, without the need for a long time in development. And obviously, you've seen this sort of thing, but now that becomes, it joins the customer where they are. So they can take a look at the tech specs and all of that sort of thing. Equally, however, we know that not all of you have tangible products. You do services, and they're not as easy to imagine in AR. But what we've developed here is that, as you can see on the right, we use AR to bring your brand closer to the customer, to take your brand to them, even though you can't be there in person. We can animate your logo, which becomes a click-through, to things like looking at applications or data. And that's really important, the idea that we can use AR to visualize data that people can then interact with. It's a fabulous way to engage with your brand in a way that isn't possible when physical interaction is no longer an option. So AR now is absolutely accessible to all. So the next thing is something that's really got me excited, and the idea of this getting me excited might be a touch sad, but it's because I come from a background of old-fashioned direct mail. And for years, the problem with direct mail has been making the leap from an offline communication to an online environment. How do you get people to do that? But done well, physical direct mail sent to the right people, targeted in the right way, is still very effective. It isn't something to overlook completely. The challenge remains, how do you get people to type in a URL, pick up the phone, visit your website, when they've got in their hands something that's very much of the analog world? Well, we've been working with a partner to develop a solution to get around that problem, and this new approach makes that direct connection, reduces that friction, and here's how. What you can see here is a mailing pack, a prototype mailing pack we developed in an early stage of a campaign with one of our clients. Contains all the usual information you might find in a more traditional direct mail generation piece. It's got all of those responsive touches that are driving to action, all the good best practices of design and copywriting, and it's a nice piece to have in your hands. But the crucial thing to notice here is that red button there that you can see that says accept mission. And once that button is pressed, it sends a signal via a radio network to your CRM system or your customer database or your data of potential contacts. It alerts you to the fact then directly that the recipient has requested a meeting. It's an instant meeting booking request. This then triggers an automated email from your system back to the recipient, asking them to confirm the meeting request. That avoids people just pressing buttons willy-nilly, or it somehow ended up in the hands of their children who might book a meeting on their behalf. So you've got a confirmed direct booking request, and all friction is removed, and the connection is obviously instantly trackable and recorded on your system. So the marketing systems kick into action automatically. What I would add right now, a little bit of a caveat, is that direct mail, even in this really hard-working, really direct digital form, must be used judiciously. With so many people switching between home and office working, you need to be certain of the correct address for the recipient. They might not actually be in their office. You might not, this thing, even though it works well, might not ever get to them. So what we're doing is suggesting that you use the tool only as something further down the funnel, not as an initial outreach piece, maybe more as a balance tipper once the lead has been qualified to a certain extent. So it's very effective, but it has to be used at the right point in the marketing funnel. So those are a bit of a whistle-stop guide to some of the tactical and creative approaches that have been proving their worth for us over recent months. And now I'd like to move on to strategy and ways you can actually put them to work for your business. So first of all, analytics. Rule one for us during the past few months has been to look for insight before taking action. And the greatest insight, the easiest source of insight, can often come from your own website. And what we've learned over recent months is to look beyond the headline news, falling or rising traffic, for example. In one case with a client, their immediate, as lockdown started, they suddenly saw, oh, web traffic has fallen, so a disaster. Where's everyone gone? We've got a sort of a reducing size of pot of people to focus on. And it seemed like bad news, but actually when we look beyond that headline of falling web traffic, we saw that although web traffic over the whole website had reduced, there were areas of the websites that were actually seeing increases in traffic, areas that maybe we hadn't focused on before. And so that allowed us to really understand where people were interested, where people's mindsets were, what was keeping them awake at night. And it allowed us to then focus the content that we produced or focus our attention into other areas that maybe we hadn't thought of previously. And what we've been doing is using a couple of different technologies and platforms to build on the insight we've been gathering for customers from their website, to do some pretty robust audience profiling that covers areas of interest, the sector they're in, and then once, as I say, connected with other technologies, we can get down to the company and even sort of individuals within the senior teams within those companies to give instantly actionable insight. And you can see, you know, we're getting some really, really close quarters information on the types of people that are visiting websites and what they're looking at and what's interesting and where trends are going. Again, however, think back to agility. Regular reviewing of the insight is absolutely critical. Because situations can change on a daily basis, your plans might need to as well. So it's all about knowing your customers, connecting with your audiences in the right way, reviewing the information that's available to you right now, and then taking action to inform your ongoing marketing and content strategies. Right, so you've got your content types, your creative approaches, your techniques, all of those things. You've done some insight work, and now you need to put it all together to get out there and make some meaningful connections. I know, leads are a critical thing that people are looking for right now. And this is definitely where I think I've saved the best until last year. I think over the past 6 or 7 months, we've taken a new approach to our marketing outreach work, one that's built on the best principles of account-based marketing. So where rather than just look at an individual sector, you look at individual target companies within that sector, and then with what we're doing, start to look at individuals within the companies within the sector. So we really get focused and we're really honing in on the best possible leads for you. But beyond sort of account-based marketing, we've made it more efficient through the use of automation and some technologies that I'll mention in a second, to make sure that you spread your net as widely as possible within a very defined market. And this is what we do. We've been running campaigns across digital media channels, so PPC, for example, display, social, email, and using data from a client's CRMs, from Lead Forensics, which is an incredibly useful platform that we're using at the moment, and LinkedIn, specifically LinkedIn Sales Navigator, to build a list of key target companies and enable one-to-one relationships directly with decision makers, influencers at those companies. So how do we get to those decision makers and influencers in the right companies? Well, typically they have a sort of typical organization, a very skeleton diagram of an organization. And when traditionally you start your marketing campaign, you might think, right, these are the 2 most important people within the organization that I really want to focus on. I want to focus on maybe the MD and maybe the CMO. Brilliant, we'll go for them. But if you go for those 2 people, you're literally narrowing the net down to 2 at very best. And that gives you a huge failure rate potential. I mean, sometimes you probably also might think about product managers, marketing managers, and sales managers. They could prove valuable for you. So you've got a potential target audience within the organization of 5. However, what we've been doing is looking broader than that. And so when you start looking beyond the usual subjects, you go from that 5, you actually get to 6, and you get to 9, and then you get up to 34 potential contacts straight away. And we're finding that's incredibly useful and valuable in the effectiveness of our marketing. Here's an example for you. This was a bit of research we did when we were developing a marketing campaign for one of our clients. One of the target companies we identified was Jo Malone. We were going to target them with LinkedIn advertising, Facebook, display, direct mail, email, and then we were going to supplement that with automated LinkedIn outreach from the sales representatives within our client's company to key decision makers at Jo Malone. And that would be about profile views, profile interactions. We would do some initial automated outreach, some connection requests, and create some initial collateral that they could engage with. And by doing that, looking at Jo Malone, the sector was packaging. So initially there was 1 packaging contact at Jo Malone. However, using LinkedIn Sales Navigator and setting the correct parameters, we immediately, within seconds, identified all of these different people who have some part to play in the decision-making buying process relating to packaging at Jo Malone. And with the system we've got created, where we're doing automated outreach on behalf of the client sales team via LinkedIn Sales Navigator, just a very light touch, would you like to connect? Here's some content. And then also supplementing that with some advertising that appeared in the feeds of all of these people, some content, some posts that we could see, that they could see. We were able to increase brand awareness. We were able to give them the opportunity to interact with the client collateral. We were giving them a chance to like posts, to follow the company LinkedIn page, to visit the company website, to download content, and ultimately request demos. And this, we were finding, beyond the CMO, beyond the MD, we were often reaching sort of 50 or 60 people within a company at this point. And whilst not everyone has a direct part to play in the actual buying at the end of it, a lot of people are very happy to refer you on to the right people within the company. And that's the great strength of this. The strength is the automation at the start, the automation of the outreach on behalf of your sales teams. So they're already generating leads. But also, when you get to people within the company, they tend to be happy to pass you on. They'll say, thanks for the connection. I'm not exactly the right person, but I am interested in what you've got to say. The person you need to speak to is, and then they'll pass on the details of the contact that you need. It's proven to be a fantastically organic system of referral that's given us some great results. And I'll just give you some examples. This is a real campaign. It was from a smaller pot. It was for 24 target companies. Now, by doing the marketing automation, the LinkedIn automation, sorry, along with the targeted advertising and the content sharing and the liking of posts and sharing of posts, all of that, we managed to reach 100% of the 24 companies, all of the companies we reached. And within that, as the activity has gone on, we've managed to establish leads within 12 of those companies. So 50% of the companies now have active leads within them. And that actually means 30 active leads from just 24 companies. And of those 30 active leads, we've actually booked 10 sales meetings, 10 qualified sales meetings within the target audience, which is a fantastic return on just 24 companies being targeted. And crucially, as I mentioned, and very strongly for the ongoing marketing, we've managed to get 21 referrals. So those people who said, I'm not the right person, here is the right person. They've passed us on to the actual decision maker. So overall, the message to response conversion has been a rate of 9.8%, which is pretty much unheard of in terms of direct marketing outreach lead generation. This is just a very small snapshot of a lot of work we're doing right now. Obviously, I'd be happy to talk to any of you further about the way we're doing it, but it is proving incredibly successful. And in this world where there isn't face-to-face meeting, that human touch at the start via LinkedIn, that gentle connection request and then sharing and liking and all of those things, so you are actually making a human relationship begin there. It's proving incredibly successful for sales teams in our client businesses. So what have we covered today? So what basically I've introduced the ideas of creative and strategy to give a new digital approach. It's sort of a menu of things you can pick from, but it's all about the combination of the two, the creative and the strategy, of course. So we've looked at creating the right virtual experience, steering clear of that sort of avatar-based experience and looking at things like Matterport, which are really agile, really easy to upload, really easy to use. We've looked at making your online event part of a wider marketing ecosystem. How does it generate content and become something that feeds your ongoing marketing plans? We've looked at digitizing your printed collateral. How can you turn things like annual reports into really effective, hardworking, even lead-generating digital documents? Also, we've showed you how AR is now more accessible and affordable than ever before, and how it can equally be valuable to a business that doesn't necessarily have tangible products, how it can be used to bring your brand and engage your brand with your prospects more effectively. Looked at digital direct mail and that button press system that now reduces the traditional friction between the recipient and them taking an action. I mentioned looking at web analytics, looking beyond the headlines, looking for trends and movements that can change on a daily basis to inform your ongoing content strategies. And finally, I've looked at a more targeted approach to remote marketing. How can you start using LinkedIn and using lead forensics and using automation and then ongoing organic referrals to actually generate direct leads for your business? Okay, and so with all of that in mind, that's if you can sort of put the idea of creative plus strategy into your head and then combine that with the idea of agility and ingenuity, you start to get somewhere where you can see how exciting the opportunities are and how you can see that, you know, all hope is not lost. And there are new ways of approaching marketing that maybe we hadn't all thought of 6 and 7 months ago, but the opportunity is still there for us to succeed as marketers if we are ingenious, if we are agile, and if we approach things with a really positive mindset. And with that in mind, I'd just like to leave it with one final thought. It was something that was said to me years and years ago in a creative brainstorm, and I think it really bears fruit now. It's a frame of mind, and it's summarized by this phrase: if you can't get through the front door, find a window. And I think that's what we all should be thinking like right now. We should all be thinking laterally. We should all be looking for ways in which the front door is the old way. The front door might be closed to us right now, but there are always windows. There is so much technology available to us. There are so many strategies we can employ right now that there is no reason why we can't continue to succeed as a marketing industry together, even in the face of the great challenges ahead of us now. Thank you. I hope that's been useful. I'll hand back to Marie now.
Hi, yes, thanks. We have had a few questions. So firstly, someone's asked, as budgets are a key consideration right now, does adoption of digital technology require large investment? Okay, well, easy answer, no. Budgets have been really tight for ourselves and for our clients right throughout all of this last 6 or 7 months. Everything I've showed you here has been developed with a really close eye on budgetary constraints. We understand, we're not blasé about the challenges that everyone is facing right now, and we understand that budgets are incredibly tight. So I've been driving my team and working with my colleagues to make sure that whatever we come up with is incredibly budget friendly. We just understand that the money isn't there to spend. So definitely everything you see here is designed to be as budget friendly as possible. Okay, great. And someone else has asked, how do you measure the success of these kind of initiatives?
Okay, well, this is the beauty of digital media, digital marketing. It's entirely, eminently measurable. Every single piece here, everything I've shown you, is measurable down to the second. Even if you think about the AR, which might seem like something you can't particularly measure, well, you absolutely can. You can see views, you can see what people have clicked on. You can use the AR for people to click through to other systems, through to your website, for example. If you think about the digital documentation, those digital versions of annual reports and so on, they become, in a way that printed collateral could never hope to be, they become instantly measurable. You can see what people have read. You can link them directly to booking forms and things like that, as I said. You can see how many downloads there've been. You can share them, and then you can start to measure response directly online. So everything in the digital world is always measurable. We don't do anything that isn't measurable. That's the only way we can prove ROI to our clients. So measurability is a sort of part of our DNA.
And then how can you be sure that things won't continue to change and make these technologies out of date just as quickly?
Again, an easy answer, I can't be sure, but what I can be sure of is that everything I've mentioned today has been designed to be flexible, to be responsive, to be able to match things changing overnight. We've had to work much more quickly than ever before. As I mentioned, marketing can't be months in the conception anymore. So the solutions that we're coming up with are things that can sort of switch direction instantly. They're incredibly flexible. I've mentioned the word agile a lot recently in this past half hour. It's certainly a hallmark of everything I've suggested. So as change happens, we try and be ready to adapt and move with it.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you to everyone who asked a question. There are quite a few others that I think will take offline and come back to people on individually. And if anyone else has any other questions that come to mind after the session, please do email them over to us, as we'd be more than happy to answer. We'll also be in touch just to share some detail on a marketing audit that we can offer, just to help outline any gaps in your strategy. We can make recommendations on what's best for you moving forward. So yeah, you'll be hearing from us shortly, but I think that's all from us. And thanks again to everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.